On June 7th, 2021, Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were shot and killed on their family's property. Maggie was shot with a rifle and Paul was killed by a shotgun blast to his head. It was a brutal crime scene. Alec Murdaugh, Maggie's husband and Paul's father, was the one who called 911 from the scene. At the time, Alec was a powerful attorney born into a family of privilege and influence in the low country of South Carolina. But within months, things would change drastically for Alec. The investigation uncovered some of Alec's dark secrets connected to a series of financial crimes. He was accused of swindling clients and stealing from his law firm. Then things got even worse for Alec as he was arrested and charged with murdering his wife and son. Tonight, we are live from the Low Country with all the big moments from inside the courtroom as prosecutors try to prove that Alec Murdaugh murdered his wife and son.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And I always say this about trials, especially big ones like this. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. And each day gets bigger and bigger. Each day gets more and more important as prosecutors try to prove their case beyond any and all reasonable doubt. The prosecutors are going to have some trouble with their snowball in this case. Not because it's warm down in South Carolina. It's actually a little chilly down there tonight. But because of some of the evidence that they don't have and can't necessarily provide to this jury. And it begins with murder weapons. There'll be no murder weapons presented in this case. You know, that's always a dramatic moment inside the courtroom when the jury sees the murder weapon, the gun, the knife, whatever was used to take the life that they are accusing the defendant of taking. And I can't explain unless you've been in the courtroom for it. You know, when the prosecutor brings out that murder weapon and you think about it and how significant and how important that evidence is, and what it's like for the jury of 12 ordinary people to look at, oh my goodness, that's the gun that did it. That moment's not going to happen in this trial. It's not. They've seen guns, but none of them are the murder weapons. And there's two different weapons. There's a shotgun and a rifle that are gone and missing. And you can understand why they're gone and missing. A killer is not necessarily going to leave them laying around. But a lot of times in a lot of trials, we do have a murder weapon. So what do we have in this case? Well, we've got prosecutors trying to build something to make it look like Alec Murdaugh had a murder weapon in his hands. And we go back, and there's one significant date. It's a few days after the murder when Alec Murdaugh goes to visit his mother's house in Alameda. Okay, it's about 18 minutes away from his main home. And he went there like 6:30 in the morning, which was kind of strange. I mean, it's very early, so he's up early, not the normal time that he would necessarily go there, but he makes this early morning visit, and he's holding something in his hand. And Shelley Smith, who's the caregiver for his mother who lives there, who has dementia, she testified about seeing a blue tarp or something in his hands. And from my perspective, she kept coming back to the tarp, the tarp, the tarp. But it was, you know, something that he carried in at 6:30 in the morning. Strange. Like, what are you bringing in? Why are you bringing it? There's no real conversation about it. And is it wrapped around something? Is there something beneath this tarp? We don't know. We don't know. She wasn't able to answer that question. So that's another problem for prosecutors. So they're trying to convince this jury that maybe it's not a tarp. Even though their witness said it's a tarp. Maybe it's not a tarp. Maybe it's a raincoat, a blue raincoat, which might look like a tarp, has some tarp-like qualities. I mean, that's where prosecutors are going with this. They're trying to create, you know, and one thing that we know is that the most unreliable evidence in a trial is eyewitness memory. It's just not reliable. It's been proven time and time again that you can get things wrong. I mean, most of us have had those moments in our life where, oh yeah, I saw something, and you remember seeing something, but you didn't actually see what you thought you saw. Well, that's kind of what prosecutors are doing with their own witness here, Shelley Smith, trying to say that maybe it was a raincoat. Maybe it was this blue raincoat that looks like a blue tarp that's really big, and when you lay it out, it has some tarp-like appearance to it. Amazing. I mean, again, you don't have the murder weapons, but you're trying to use this raincoat to put a murder weapon in Alec Murdaugh's hands, right? When he's carrying that blue tarp-like thing into the house. I want you to take a listen. The reason this is so significant on whether or not we're talking about a blue raincoat or a blue tarp is because the testimony of Megan Fletcher, she works for SLED, which is the investigatory body down there in South Carolina, talking about her examination, not of the tarp, but of the blue raincoat that has some tarp-like qualities to it, but it had something else on it. Take a listen.
There were 13 particle lifts collected from the exterior of the jacket, and I did find particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue on it.
Now, what does that mean?
That jacket could have been in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, or something that had gunshot residue on it could have transferred to that object. I can't tell you when that happened or how it happened. Yes, we turned it inside out and also collected samples from the inside.
Was there a lot of gunshot primer residue inside of the jacket?
I would say there were a significant number of particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue on the inside of this jacket, yes.
How many did you determine?
I confirmed 38 particles characteristic. Given that it's on the inside, in order for it to be consistent with transfer, an object or objects with a high amount of gunshot primer residue on it would have had to transfer to it. So they would have had to have more gunshot primer residue particles on them to begin with in order to transfer the amount of gunshot primer residue I found on this coat.
And as far as a recently fired firearm, would your findings be consistent with that item containing a recently fired firearm?
It is possible, yes.
With that number of particles?
With that number, it is possible.
Is there any other possibility? You stated one. Are there any more?
If the jacket was inside out and simply in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, it could have also had that number of particles on it.
GSR, gunshot residue on this blue raincoat. Blue raincoat has gunshot residue. You know, every big trial I've ever covered, there's always like a piece of evidence that we remember forever. In this case, I think it's going to be the blue raincoat / blue tarp. You know, kind of like the gas cans from a couple other trials that we covered. All right, so let's get some more context for all this. Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter joins us live tonight outside that courthouse in Walterboro, South Carolina. Of course, she was inside the courtroom today. Chanley, great to see you. Okay, this is the GSR expert. She's finding particles on this blue raincoat. What else did the GSR expert find?
Yeah, she found copious amounts of gunshot residue on the blue raincoat, but that wasn't all that she tested. The jury heard about other items, including the clothing that Alec Murdaugh was wearing when police arrived to the crime scene June 7th, 2021. She talks about how in her lab at SLED, they can put the articles of clothing under this big microscope to find different particles, and small particles were found on his clothing. The shirt he was wearing, the shorts he was wearing, on his hands, but not on those tennis shoes that I showed you last night, those Nike tennis shoes. No gunshot residue on that. She also tested the seat belt that was in the Chevy Suburban Alec Murdaugh was driving the night of the murders, and the seatbelt buckle, there's a photo of it, had small particles of gunshot residue on that as well. So she can say, of course, that there's particles, but she can't say how they got there, Vinny, or when the gunshot residue got there. Was it because this item was in the vicinity of a firearm being shot, or was it something that was transferred onto that particular item?
This gets so tricky for both sides. This gets really tricky between the blood, lack of blood, the fresh scent, but it's got particles on it. No gun has been found, but he had a shotgun when they showed up. Okay. Where did they find the raincoat, and did they find the tarp? That, because again, I'm confused here. I'm really confused. My job is not to be confused. I wonder if the jurors are as confused about raincoat.
The jury is.
Yeah, raincoat
confused.
and tarp.
Yeah.
What is what and what's found
Yes.
where?
And what made it even more confusing, Vinny, is that inside the courtroom, the defense brought its own tarp from Kmart and unwrapped it. It had nothing to do with what was found in the mother's home, in Alec Murdaugh's mother's home, but they did enter this, Kmart tarp into evidence. It's a defendant's exhibit. But inside the home of the mother, remember, Shelley Smith told an officer in an unrelated jurisdiction about this suspicious activity of Alec Murdaugh in September following a car accident that she was in, just in regular conversation. She brought it up. That led to the search of the mother's home in September, where they did uncover not only a blue tarp, but a blue raincoat. Let's watch.
That is the blue tarp that we located inside the bedroom in the inside the closet inside the bedroom.
Okay. And what was that tarp located in?
A storage container.
Were there any items in the storage container?
There were miscellaneous dishes underneath the tarp.
After you found the tarp, did you continue searching the residence?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay. And what else did you find?
We located a blue raincoat in the coat closet on the second floor.
So in a storage container, they found a blue tarp and a blue raincoat kind of stuffed. We've all seen the photo, stuffed in a coat closet. Well, on cross-examination, as you can imagine, she was asked about what was tested and what wasn't tested. Let's watch.
You went to Almeda, Ms. Libby Murdaugh's home, to execute a search warrant. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
And what was the day? September
16th, 2021.
September 16th, 2021. And you were looking for a blue tarp.
We were advised that we were searching for a blue tarp-like material.
Okay. And you found a blue tarp, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And in that blue tarp, there were dishes wrapped up in that blue tarp, right?
No, sir, no dishes were wrapped in the blue tarp. It was folded on top of the dishes.
Okay. So you seized the blue tarp, right?
Yes, sir.
And did you do any testing of the blue tarp to see if there was blood?
No, sir, I did not do any testing on the blue tarp.
Do you know anyone who did any blue testing on the blue tarp?
I am unaware of any testing done on the blue tarp.
Vinny, even though they found a blue tarp in the home, which I want to show on the screen because it's blue on one side and silver on the other side. I don't recall Shelley Smith talking about it being multicolored, but that's the tarp they found in the home. It wasn't even tested, though. And that seemed to make some waves inside the courtroom. Why would they test one object and not both objects just in case, right?
That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Why would it hurt? I mean, you went there looking for a blue tarp. You found a blue tarp. You didn't test it. You found a raincoat, but you tested that. I get testing the raincoat because it's got some tarp-like qualities, but how about testing the thing that is actually a tarp, right? Because they were looking for a blue tarp because Shelley Smith said she saw, I mean, heard her in the courtroom too. She said she saw Alec Murdaugh carrying a blue tarp.
She did. So on direct, it was a blue something in his hands. Well, on cross-examination, the defense gets a little more specific. What was this blue something? And she was adamant. It was a tarp. Let's watch.
Now, you saw Mr. Alec Murdaugh bring a tarp in, you said, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you a tarp, which we marked for identification purposes, Your Honor, Exhibit 86. Is this the type of tarp that Mr. Murdaugh came in to the Alameda house on the day that we're talking about?
Yes.
Tarp like this that would maybe cover up a car. Is that right?
Yes.
Any way to confuse this with a rain jacket?
No.
He was not carrying a rain jacket, was he?
No, it was balled up. I don't know him.
There's the tarp that the defense brought out on cross-examination, and she was adamant it was a tarp. However, in the photo that we do have of where this blue raincoat, or more, it's more like a poncho. It is a big raincoat, Vinny. They do show her a picture of what it looked like in the closet, and she says, yes, that is similar to what I saw him carrying right there. So that's how they're connecting her with the actual raincoat.
Yeah, I think they should be using the term poncho. I think poncho just screams tarp much more than a raincoat would, but that's the raincoat / poncho. That's not the tarp there?
That is the raincoat, poncho, possibly confused as a tarp.
Okay. Let's bring in our guests. Joining the conversation in Charlotte, North Carolina, host of the Murdaugh podcast, Impact of Influence, Matt Harris is with us. And in Monroe, North Carolina, death investigator, forensic criminologist, Dr. Laura Pettler is with us. All right, Matt, was it raining the night of the murders?
Yes.
It was.
A drizzle off and on throughout the night, yes.
That's great to know. So raincoat, poncho might make some sense in all of this.
Very possible, yes, very possible. I mean, you've prosecuted a lot of criminals who are stupid. So just because you're stupid doesn't mean you didn't do it. So the idea that he would hide the poncho at his mom's house is so ridiculous. There's a million places that he could have gotten rid of that poncho. You've seen the amount of nothingness that's out there, the spread, the waterways, you could throw it in a Goodwill box for that matter. I don't know why he would insist on holding on to that poncho, but like we said, not every murderer is doing their best way to absolve them of that murder, but just ridiculous that he would leave it there.
Dr. Laura Pettler, how about the gunshot residue here? What is it telling us a story tonight?
You know, Vinny, gunshot residue for me is one of those types of evidence you have to be extremely careful with for all of the reasons they were talking about today on the stand. The experts were explaining that it can be transferred if you know, under various circumstances. So it's one of those types of evidence that a lot of people do not use anymore. There's research that has been questionable, where it's called into question the science at some level. And so there are agencies around the country today that do not use GSR and do not test anything related to GSR. Secondly, that's important to know about GSR, the substrate or the material that you are testing is also very important. And the ballistics experts I've worked with over the past 20-some years working in homicide, one of the things they've always told me is make sure you seal the item you're going to test very quickly and get it to the lab as fast as possible, because this type of evidence, what they're talking about, GSR, often degrades, and it's something that happens quicker than maybe other types of evidence. And so they've always advised us to get an item that's going to be tested for GSR to the lab, sealed very quickly. One of the experts even explained, put it in a clean paint can and seal it like that, because a lot of times this types of evidence is maybe absorbed into the material or falls off the material. I'm not an expert in GSR, but that's what they've told me over the past 22 years that I've been doing this.
And I'll tell you, but the gunshot residue, I think, resonates with the jury because it's kind of like something they understand. All right, you shoot a gun, you're gonna get something on you. It's fascinating. All right, Dr. Laura Pettler, Matt Harris staying with us the whole hour. Chanley Painter with us down there in the Low Country. When we come back, let's talk about Alec Murdaugh's potential motive. The life of Alec Murdaugh is bizarre. It is complicated.
This great South Carolina attorney is charged with the murders of his own wife and son.
Okay, and are they breathing?
No, ma'am.
Who exactly is this guy?
The evidence is going to show that he was there.
He is innocent.
Who knows where this thing is going to end?
This case needs to be resolved. We need to put this behind us and move on.
Murdaugh Family Murders. Live coverage weekday mornings only on Court TV.
For inspection and estimate. what is States 313?
That is a check from Chris Wilson's client trust account payable to Richard Alexander Murdaugh, Esquire, in the amount of $225,000 referencing Ferris fees.
Is it made out to the law firm?
No.
Who's it made out to?
It's made out to him personally, Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
When you see this check, what, if anything, is your realization?
That he stole the money, that he'd been lying.
That was in front of the jury. The jury got to hear that. This is really now getting into what is the potential motive here, that it's the perfect storm, that Alec Murdaugh is caught up in all of this stealing from his own firm. Let's take a listen. More testimony. This is the woman who is the accountant, the CFO of the firm that Alec worked at, which was really started by his great-grandfather back in 1910.
On Monday, on June 7th, I went looking for Alec.
Let me slow you down. On Monday, June 7th?
Yes.
What year?
21.
June 7th, 2021. What happened?
Went to look for Alec, and when I got upstairs, he was standing outside of his office leaning on a file cabinet, and he looked at me with a pretty dirty look, one I'd not seen before, and said, "What do you need now?" Clearly disgusted with me, which kind of raised my hackles. So I said, "Well, let's go in your office and talk about it." When we went in his office, I told him, I said, "I have reason to believe that you received the Ferris money directly to you, and you need to prove to me that you did not."
Let's bring back in our guest, Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, Matt Harris from the Impact of Influence Murdaugh podcast, and Dr. Laura Pettler, death investigator. Chanley, to me, this is so significant, so important, because now the jury's hearing this for the first time, right? They're hearing about Alec Murdaugh stealing money from his firm. Those are the allegations. What sort of reaction, if any, from this jury hearing this type of information? And what else is sort of going on? Are there any sort of dynamics between the witness and the defendant?
Yeah, Jeannie's second juror, she does not mince words. She's a competent and determined witness inside the courtroom. She doesn't hesitate to look over directly at Alec Murdaugh, who was avoiding eye contact with her inside the courtroom, Vinny, but she was very clear in her testimony. And at first, her description of who Alec Murdaugh was as a lawyer, and of course how she uncovers this multi-million-dollar theft of Alec Murdaugh to her law firm and his clients, the jury is engaged. Nothing overt, no real emotion, but definitely leaning in and actively listening to her testimony. There's one particular juror who really does nod her head a lot to witnesses. And then as her testimony extended, she went check by check, and that elongated her testimony a little bit around lunchtime, and that's when they sort of lost interest, it seemed.
Let me ask you, Matt, about Alec Murdaugh and what he was doing here. How would you describe the financial scheme that he was running with his firm and with clients? What was he doing here?
He was playing a little shell game. He was moving money around as needed to pay off money he had borrowed from, Russell Lafitte, who was his co-conspirator, who was convicted already, and ironically, small world, Jeannie Seckinger's ex-brother-in-law, or current brother-in-law, I guess. I know, right? So you can just feel like the pain and the anger that she has about this. So he would take money from accounts that Russell Lafitte was running at the bank, and he would take money from there and pay loans and move it around there. And when he needed more money, he'd go find another conservatorship that Russell was running, take some money from there, pay off this guy, pay off that guy, put it back in the conservatorship. It was a constant moving around of money.
Do we have any idea why he needed all this money and where the money is going that he's stealing? Well, the state is saying bad land deals, and it came up today in one of the witnesses' testimony that in early 2000s, he went in with some people. Bullware was one of the guys, his mother partners. 2008, the bottom fell out like it did for everybody, I think.
probably every attorney in that neck of the woods is buying up land in the early 2000s. So he's buying up stuff, and then some of the partners bailed. It was on his record, his financial record, and that's where some of it went. I mean, he did have a couple boats, a real nice dog kennel. Someone told me that dog kennel might be $80 to $90 to $100,000. So it could have been a little piece by piece and some little trips, and he was running things on the business credit card too. And opioids is the other thing that the defense will want you to know.
All right, Dr. Laura Pettler, when it comes to people accused of murder, right? I mean, there's got to be some explanation as to why someone would do this, right? Here it seems we're getting a picture of a guy whose life seems to be unraveling, that he's going to be exposed as a financial fraudster and a financial criminal. Where do you rank that in terms of motives that you've seen through the years for people accused of horrific crimes like shooting your son in the head and blowing his brains all over a dog kennel?
Well, one of the first things that we do from the behavioral side of forensic criminology, Vinny, is try to eliminate and sequester the white noise. And there's a lot of white noise in this particular case going on from various different angles to me. So I would be trying to pare that down. Then I would be identifying the chain of events, the behavioral change, so to speak. So there's always a trigger, and then that evokes an emotion, and that evokes a thought, and then that evokes a behavior. So what is the trigger? Then what did he think? Then what did he feel? And then what did he do? So that's what I would be thinking about as far as building a framework to start understanding what a potential motive is. But it boils down to murder is usually very simple. It's usually conflict resolution for an offender, and it can often be pared down into 3 steps: conflict, resolution, and benefit.
Let's take a listen now to the cross-examination of this very important witness.
According to your testimony, that this misconduct has been going on since as early as 2011?
Unfortunately, when we found that out.
Right. So some 10 years before the murders of Maggie and Paul, correct?
That's correct. He managed to fool a lot of people, myself included.
So Chanley, the allegation here, I guess here is he's been doing this for a long time, but now he finally gets caught.
Yeah, the insinuation on the cross-examination by Jim Griffin was, hey, this has been going on a long time. You guys didn't really seem to care until he stole money from you, not his clients, and almost kind of pointing the blame towards the firm a bit, and also saying that, look, he really, the firm didn't know about this fake forge account until September, the day he was confronted. You know, it wasn't about everything he was doing. It was just one check that was suspicious that he could likely explain away, Vinny.
All right. When we come back, we're going to take a walk through the timeline of the night of the murders, because we've learned a lot more now as we've moved through this trial. A lot more evidence, testimony. We'll put it into our timeline next.
Kill you, I will end you, and I will destroy you.
Someone they knew is back.
I mean, you talk about high stakes, right?
With a brand new season.
This is how I'm going to die.
New crimes.
It was a brutal killing.
New cases.
You ask yourself, why?
Committed by those closest to the victim.
They seemed happy.
Someone They Knew with Tamron Hall. New season premieres February 19th.
Only on Court TV.
On the evening of June 7th, 2021, at the defendant's property, his son Paul Murdaugh was standing in a small feed room and some kennels they had on the property. And the defendant over there, Alec Murdaugh, took a 12-gauge shotgun and shot him in the shoulder. Just moments later, he picked up an AR-style rifle and opened fire on his wife, Maggie. Pow, pow. 2 shots, abdomen and the leg, and took her down. And after that, there were additional shots, including 2 shots to the head, that killed her instantly.
That's the prosecutor laying out what he believes happened the night of the double murder. What I want to do now, though, is go through the timeline with some of the evidence that has been presented in court to get a clearer picture of what prosecutors are saying transpired that night. Let's begin. June 7th, 2021, 7:39 p.m. Paul takes a Snapchat video of Alec, messing around with a tree on the family property.
Better than it was, ain't it?
8:40 p.m. Paul talks on the phone with his friend Rogan Gibson about an issue they're having with one of the dog's tails.
June 7th, 2021, did you have any communications with Paul?
I did, around 8:40.
Okay. And what was that conversation about?
He called and asked if something was wrong with the dog's tail.
Okay. And was that the first you were hearing about that?
That's correct.
Tell me about your conversation.
I told him that, I wasn't real sure. I just dropped him off there Sunday. And told him let's try to see if he can get me a picture or FaceTime me and let me see what was going on with the dog's tail.
All right. Where was Paul when he called you?
He was at the dog kennels.
8:44 p.m. Paul attempts to FaceTime Rogan. When the call fails, he takes a video to send him. Both Alec and Maggie can be heard speaking in the background.
Get back. Get back. Quick, Cash. Come on. Quick. It's okay. Come here. It's not bad. Come here, Cash. Post it. Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth. Bubba.
Hey, Bubba.
It's a guinea.
This is a chicken.
Come here, Bubba.
Come here, Cash.
Come here, Bubba.
Cash. Quit.
8:48 p.m. Paul sends his last ever text message to his friend Megan Kimbrough and reads her reply before all activity on Paul's phone stops.
In line 5, what does that indicate?
Line 5 shows it as an outgoing or sent text message with a body or the text message saying, "Star was born is the move." It's a text message that was received on this phone June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:39 p.m. Shows as an incoming text message.
All right, and who's it from, the contact name?
It's from Megan Kimbrough.
And what does the text message say?
It says, "Don't like watching sad movies."
Okay. And this was an incoming message to Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
Does it indicate that this message was read?
Yes, sir. It shows as read June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:59 p.m.
9:06 p.m. Alec attempts to call Maggie. When she doesn't answer, he texts her, "Going to check on M, be right back." He then heads to his car and starts the engine.
And then we see at line 4461, another incoming call, correct?
Yes, sir. That was at 9:06:51 p.m. and that was from 1-803-942-1227 PA.
Okay. And that's Alex's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
Line 4466. What is this?
4466 shows a text message received incoming at 9:08:58 p.m. From the phone number 1-803-942-1227 Alex to Maggie Murdaugh.
What does that text say?
It says, going to check on M, be right back.
When did Mr. Murdaugh's car start?
According to this timeline that's been prepared, it looks like it starts at 9:06:48 p.m.
Between 9 o'clock and 9:30, Alec arrives at his mother's house and is let in by her caregiver, Shelley. She says Alec spent 15 to 20 minutes with his mom before leaving.
At some point on the evening of June 7th of 2021, did you see Alex Murdaugh?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember what time it was? Approximately.
The game show was on, so it had to have been 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9:30, somewhere up in there.
8:39, 9:30?
Yeah, somewhere up in there.
Okay. How long did he stay in the room with y'all? I say y'all, for the record, you and Miss Libby, I apologize.
About 15 to 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
9:47 p.m., Alec texts Maggie, call me, babe.
What time is that entry?
That entry is at 9:47:23 p.m.
And what is that?
It is a text message that was received on that from Alex. It says, call me, babe.
Okay. And was that text ever read? I know that's referencing the previous report.
No, sir, that text was not read.
10:06 p.m., Alec returns to Moselle and calls 911 after finding Maggie and Paul's bodies out by the kennels.
4147 Mobile Road. I've been up to it now. It's fast. Okay. How did they shoot? Did they shoot themselves? Oh, no. Hell no.
Let's bring back in our guests. Chanley Painter, Matt Harris, Dr. Laura Pettler. Chanley, let me start with you. I remember in his opening statement, Dick Harpootlian talked about he'd have to be Houdini to pull this off. What is the Houdini trick, according to the defense, that Alec would have to pull off based upon this timeline that's being built?
Yeah, it goes back to those detailed cell phone records, what Maggie's phone was showing and what Alec's phone was showing around the time, after the murders, and prosecutors believe he leaves to go to his mother's house. So what the defense is saying, that around that time of 9:06, 9:08, where he's calling Maggie, texting her he's going to go see his mom, her phone has its last orientation change around 9:06 when he's supposed to be calling her at the house. So they say that's when her phone was tossed half a mile away. How can he be at his home, getting in his car, leaving, and her phone being tossed at the same time half a mile down the road, Vinny? So they call that Houdini.
Matt Harris, what's the biggest question that you have lingering about what happened that night in this whole timeline of events that's being laid out?
Well, the one thing I caught on cross about the phone was, and this is the way I heard it, was that if her phone was thrown when the screen is off, it won't do orientation. So in other words, at 9:06, he could be doing this, and then phone settles down, and then throws, and it doesn't record. That's how I saw the experts say it. So I think he didn't have to be Houdini. The biggest problem still is, how is the defense going to explain Alec running around telling everybody that would listen that he took the nap? I mean, we had another witness on the stand today, another attorney. He's like, yeah, he's telling everybody, I took a nap, I took a nap, I took a nap. But yet he's at the kennel at 8:44 and change. It's a problem.
That's a big, big problem. Dr. Laura Pettler, let me ask you, based upon this timeline, does it strike you as enough time to commit this double murder, get rid of the weapons, and not have any blood on you?
Yes. In staged murders, Vinny, it is very common for people to do pre-staging behaviors, which can account for saving time on the back end. So, yes, in staged murders, and I'm not saying, I'm saying this is an alleged crime they're trying him for now, but as the author of the first book in the world on staged murder and solving them, I can tell you after all my research, yes, I mean, it's very possible, because this pre-staging behaviors mitigates what they do on the post-crime, post-death of the victims to save time. The timeline is interesting. It really warrants a comparison across his routine activities and the way he speaks. Does he call Maggie babe? Other aspects of his life as a suspect need to be compared to the chronology and to the timeline, because that could help really identify what is authentic and what is inauthentic in the timeline.
Great insight, Dr. Laura Pettler. Great to see you. Matt Harris, thank you so much for your help once again tonight. Chanley, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. We'll be right back.
Now.
Did he say whether or not he had gone down to the kennels with Maggie and Paul before he left to go to Alameda after 9 p.m.?
That came up in one of the conversations, and he specifically said that he did not.
That is the voice of one of Alec Murdaugh's former law partners. Your law partner's coming in and testifying. They're just telling the truth about what he said. And again, that's a big, big foundational piece of the prosecution, that he said he wasn't there, but the recording shows he was there. Let's bring back in Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, who's down there at the courthouse. Chanley, looked like another busy day in the courtroom. I was getting text messages from people, including a very good family friend, Elizabeth, who retired down to South Carolina, and she made the trek into the courthouse today. What did you see? What did you notice in there today?
Yeah, packed house again today. There was a line even, after lunch. They wait to get back in. They go back in line and they sit in the gallery. Earlier this morning, there was a class, a young class, a civics class, I believe it was, here for school in the morning in the gallery, and then left at the lunch break for that. And so you see a lot of local people, people from all over the nation, just coming in to watch this in person. Most are older, retirement age. They can, take the time to come and be here, Vinny. But the witness that you just played, Ronnie Crosby, I have to say, probably the most impactful witness inside the courtroom, because he did become emotional as he was asked about, tell this jury about Paul Murdaugh. He was very close to Paul Murdaugh. He had some long pauses to collect himself to recall, who he was, and he knew him since he was born, and that he called him Uncle Ronnie. He even gave a eulogy at Paul's funeral. So you could really sense that connection and what a struggle it was for that witness inside the courtroom to testify against his friend of 25 years, Alec Murdaugh, and who was also, in turn, very emotional, breaking down as you see him do, especially when the testimony turns to Paul or Maggie, the condition of their bodies, who they were. And so that was definitely a moment. And for really the first time, I've noticed jurors look over towards Alec Murdaugh, but today it was almost purposeful for a couple of those jurors in that moment that we're watching to look to him and see his reaction to Ronnie Crosby. And that is another theme, I think, here for prosecutors, which is betrayal, right? To get to the ultimate betrayal, which is the allegation here that you're killing your wife, right? Your wife and your son. I mean, the betrayal of a father to turn a weapon on them and just eliminate their lives. That's the ultimate betrayal. So I think these other pieces of betrayal are significant and important. Here he is, a guy he calls Uncle Ronnie, and he's stealing money from him, and then lying about where he was that night. So to me, that's huge. It's huge, and it's not just Uncle Ronnie. It is Gloria Satterfield, the woman who worked with him for 25 years. We're expecting to hear from her son tomorrow inside the courtroom. It's his law firm. Jeannie Seckinger took the stand today again, in front of the jury, as you know, and has known Alec for 40 years. Would never have thought he was stealing from the law firm, and kept second-guessing herself as she started seeing suspicious things around the office, and said that she's worked with him for 23 years. But she was very determined, and I have to say, really the jury reacted to her testimony today.
Yeah, and it goes to the question, who could kill their own flesh and blood? Well, maybe someone who could steal from his good friends that he's known for a lifetime. That's where they're going with all this. All right, Chanley Painter, amazing job. Thank you so much. Up next, the lawyers.
3-1.
In the low country of South Carolina, another big day of testimony inside the jam-packed courtroom as prosecutors try to prove disgraced attorney Alec Murdaugh shot and killed his own wife and son. And today, testimony about gunshot residue. Does it link Alec to the shootings?
Was there a lot of gunshot primer residue inside of the jacket?
I would say there were a significant number of particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue on the inside of this jacket, yes.
Meanwhile, the jury hears for the first time allegations that Alec was stealing money from his law firm as the firm's accountant takes the stand.
That is a check from Chris Wilson's client trust account payable to Richard Alexander Murdaugh, Esquire, in the amount of $225,000.
When you see this check, what, if anything, is your realization?
That he stole the money.
On the docket tonight in Santa Fe County, New Mexico, A-list celebrity and actor Alec Baldwin is facing a mandatory 5 years in prison for shooting and killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Tonight, a first look at the prosecution's witness list.
I take the gun out, and as I take, like as it clears, as the barrel clears, I turn and cock the gun over here. I turn and cock the gun goes off. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be a cold gun.
In tonight's Tank Takes, Alec Murdaugh apparently changed shoes on the night of the murders. Did he do it for comfort or because of blood? Get ready. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Forensic evidence. You love it. I love it. We love it. It's a great way to try to prove a crime. How about gunshot residue in a case where the victims were shot and killed, right? You take a look at the suspects. Is there any gunshot residue on the suspects? And if so, we are much, much closer. Who gets gunshot residue on themselves? I mean, if I tested myself right now, would I have